Our police chiefs around this country right now, a lot of them are being indoctrinated into this globalist mentality, into this very socialist anti-Second Amendment mentality. We got a chief in Tulsa that came in, and when he first arrived, they hired him off. He was the first chief of police of Tulsa, Oklahoma that was ever hired outside the department. He came from the East Coast. And when he came on board, the NRA sent him a complimentary free membership. And he walked into Internal Affairs, took that NRA membership with his aide-de-camp, another idiot, and they shredded it and laughed and said, what does the NRA think about this? And he shredded it like that, and everybody in Internal Affairs looked at him with a strange look, and he said, what's wrong? And he said, the lieutenant there said, Chief, do you realize that 90% of the officers in the Tulsa Police Department are NRA members? And he just I didn't know that, and he turned and walked off. But that shows you the mentality of chiefs all across the country. Our hope lies in our sheriffs, because our sheriffs don't get hired by mayors; they get elected. And if we can elect the right sheriffs, the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county, and the sheriff is above the federal government operations in the county. He's above the mayor. He's above all the chiefs of police, and that's the guy you need to get in and support. Is a good, patriotic American sheriff. And if we can do that and keep that going, like Sheriff Mack and some of the others up there, Sheriff Craig and some of the others, then and increase those numbers, that's where we're starting the grassroots.
Well, I mean, you brought up history, and what, for those that don't know, you obviously know this, but in these control grids, fascist or communist, all command and control, they first create special paramilitary units like SWAT teams, which you've been a member of. And I'm not saying there isn't some use for those in bigger departments. The point is, then they expand those units, but then disarm the main units. England and places do this, and only allow the secretive Praetorian internal police to have the high-powered weapons or the lethal weapons. And there is an agenda in this. I've noticed when the media likes to demonize local police for things they do wrong, but then the feds are always billed as the saviors who come in and federalize things and then make departments put in the chiefs they say, and then bring in the hate laws and turn the police into political officers that spy on everybody else. And that's now the conversion we're seeing. I mean, did that upset any of your cop buddies when they found out that the MIAC report and Homeland Security reports, I guess they'd also been seeing them, said that veterans were the main threat to America?
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody went ballistic around here. I mean, I don't think those morons that came out with that realized the blowback they would get from the local law enforcement communities across the nation, especially, in this part of the country, the Midwest and the Southwest and some parts of the Northwest, where these guys are there's so many veterans who are now police officers. There's so many Christians who are police officers, as NRA members who are police officers. There's, every category they came up with, they're in law enforcement and they're in the military. And so when you start rubber stamping who the enemy of the government is, and you come up with something without thinking it through, and then it gets released where everybody sees it, you got a major problem. Because
that's why we got it, was because police and even a federal marshal were upset by it. But what about how they're now, and this was confirmed, people didn't believe it 6 months ago, now it's been in Washington Post and everywhere else, all the VFWs, even that had 150-year-old plugged cannons, spiked cannons, they had to register them all and then turn a lot of it in. The government said, that rifle you've got that we have a record of that you had from World War I, you can't have that hanging above your VFW now. You got to turn it into us. I mean, folks, this is serious.
Well, we didn't have that happen here. I mean, these guys still got the Springfields and the M1s they march with the flags and all of that, and they're fully operational. They haven't been plugged or anything. They got them years and years ago. But what we are seeing is with the BATFE. It gets me. It used to be the ATF, then it was the BATF, now it's the BATFE. They just get more alphabet, all the time. They've got people there working as agents out there enforcing so-called gun control laws that don't know anything about firearms. And they couldn't tell you an automatic weapon from a semi-automatic weapon.
Well, let me say this. You've had run-ins with them, and you've clearly evidenced that the BATF was involved in Oklahoma City at certain levels. But you can comment on that if you want to elaborate, but I want to take a few final calls here. But I've had a couple run-ins at gun shows, and a few other times with the BATFE, whatever it is today. And these guys came off like real mercenary criminal types. I mean, I've never gotten such a criminal, bad vibe, and their mannerism, they were very psychopaths. I mean, where do they recruit these guys?
Well, I don't know. What I run into and have over the years is they'll have agents who try to go in and enforce laws in areas where they have minimal training, and it's like, well, in their own mind, in their own attitude is, gee, you have too many guns, or you have too much ammunition. You almost have an arsenal. You don't need all these guns. Well, there's nothing anywhere that limits the amount of guns or ammunition you can own.
Exactly. Every month I see an article about some old vet's cleaning his gun in his garage. The neighbor sees it. The BATF comes, and then they arrest him and say he had 45 guns. It was an arsenal. Well, what? It's not illegal.
No, it's not illegal. There's a guy in California who's a member of the 50 Caliber Association who was arrested in the state of California because he had links left over from some 50 caliber ammo belts he bought, de-linked the rounds so he could shoot them in his Barrett out on the range, and the links were in a bucket or a coffee can or something, and they came in and arrested him because he had large capacity ammunition feeding device for machine gun links. And he didn't have a machine gun. I mean, what are you going to feed with those things anyway? I mean, that's ridiculous. It's that kind of mentality that pushes people over the edge and causes blowback. And, I mean, look at...
Well, what about people that'll have a AR-15 that's a legal AR-15, it misfires, they go and tattle on themselves, the police show up, and they get charged like that veteran and go to prison?
Oh, I know. This is a total lack of common sense and flexibility in street officers and in federal agents that we're starting to see more and more of. We did not have this 20 or 30 years ago. We had people with common sense. I don't know how many people that I caught, playing around with silencers and stuff, and they weren't really silencers. They take a lawnmower muffler or a pop bottle or something, and they put it on the end of a 22 to see what it sounded like. Well, yeah, that could be a federal offense because once you put those two things together, you have a sound suppressor.
But everybody's done that at one time or another. They live on the farm.
Oh yeah, everybody's done that, and what's the big deal? But you can own it. You can go out right now and you can buy a real sound suppressor with a threaded pistol barrel and the whole bit, and register it for $200 and have it and carry it and do whatever you want to with it. But you can't build your own. It's a tax thing, and that's where they get you, is the federal tax thing. But like you say, I know a guy that he called me up and he said, I got a problem with an SKS I bought. I said, what's that? And he said, I squeezed the trigger and it emptied 6 rounds all of a sudden. He said, it sounded like a machine gun. And I said, well, you better get it checked. Well, he did. What happened was he left it out in the shed and it rusted some of the internal parts in the receiver and the trigger mechanism. They cleaned it up. It was fine. But if somebody had heard that, let's say some deputies driving down the road heard that, they would have arrested him for having a machine gun. When it's not a machine gun, but it just happened to be defective. The same type of case you're talking about.
Well, also, there's this magical thing about a fully auto, when my experience is I don't want a full auto. I want single shot or burst because that you can more effectively put your lead where you want it.
Well, my background, you know what that is. I'm better with a bolt-action deer rifle. You give me a scope and a deer rifle and give me a hill, I'm good to go. Somebody out here is going to get some kind of an automatic weapon. The only thing they're going to find out is they're going to run out of ammunition real soon. I mean, what's the point? So everybody's got their own ideas on this stuff. But, the bottom line is I never saw such a resurgence of people buying weapons and ammunition as when Obama got supposedly elected. Now, he wasn't even in office yet. But just the rumors of him going to office or the election results, he caused a stampede, and we saw it. I don't know where you can find .380 ammo today. I mean, this stuff just dries up.
But isn't that a strong message to the New World Order that this country isn't going down without a fight?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it shocked them. I don't, and you haven't seen any mention of any gun control laws, even from Schumer and Boxer and Feinstein.
No, they've got them introduced, though, but they won't talk about them.
They won't talk about it. They don't want to say anything because they know it would cause a massive blowback. Now, remember what happened during the assault weapons ban? the Democrats lost Congress. Well, now this medical care deal that they've got going through right now could cause the same thing. I expect it will. I expect that these people are committing political.
But I don't think they're going to let a group of patriots come in next year. I think they're going to stage terror attacks before then.
Well, it could very well happen. They may not even worry about the next election.
All right, we're going to take a few final calls on the other side quickly. I've kind of hogged the time with Colonel Roberts. Always great having him on, covering 1,000 different issues. We're going to take some of your calls in the final segment. Quick answers from Craig Roberts, riflewarrior.com. Our site's Infowars.com.